because everything cannot be done at the same time,
Correct.
right?
Mhm.
Whether it is, I want this career to happen, I want this family to happen, I want to get married at this time, I want to have these kids at this time. So at some point, we have to sit down, we have to actually prioritize what is actually the most important.
Right.
So I asked you that question because that's the way that I look at it now. So for example, if I was in you guys' shoes, I would be thinking, okay, so it's February 2023. We said April 2024, we want to get married. So that's 1 year. My wife's gonna be 28. Keeping in mind, she said she wants to do this before 30. Then she's still working on her career. I'm working on mine. Then we want to travel. So let's say we gave ourselves a year to travel. Now she's 29. If we don't make it happen in 2025 going into 2026, she might feel some kind of way about that. So we need to have some sort of strategy. I'm huge into strategy.
Right.
We need to have some sort of strategy of how are we going to accommodate for these things
Hmm.
so that she feels comfortable and I feel comfortable. So
Yeah.
that would be my challenge to you in
Yeah.
thinking about the future, because you have a certain amount of time essentially that you want these things to happen. What do you want for yourself in the future in every sense of the word? Professionally, personally, family? What does that look like for Kateri?
Man. Well, I'll start with professionally. Professionally, I think I'm still on this quest of what I want to do career wise. Like right now, I work in HR, and I think I know my role well. I've been in it for a little over a year.
Okay.
But I guess I'm still trying to find the passion for HR. And I
Okay.
don't know if I'm necessarily going to find it or if I'm still very open to other career paths.
Okay.
And I guess cut to tie in the relationship, like Tim, he's a software engineer right now, and I see that he has like amazing work life balance and all this stuff, and he can work from home whenever he wants. I still have a hybrid schedule, so I can't complain, but
Okay.
he just has the option to be home whenever he wants, and so that's kind of been enticing. And like he's talked to me about potentially getting into that field. So I don't know, maybe I'm either gonna one day hopefully become like an HR generalist or an HR manager, or I might be doing something completely different, but I'm keeping my options open. I can't say
Okay.
at this moment where I see myself exactly career wise, but I know that my mentality has changed because when I was in college, I was like, I want to, I actually studied psychology and I thought I wanted to be like a social worker or
Mm,
a psychologist or like yourself, a counselor. But then I tried being a behavior therapist for a little bit, and it was a rewarding job, but I definitely couldn't see myself doing that long term. And
mm,
that's kind of what led me into HR and trying different things. So my perspective has changed where it used to be
sure.
like, I want to do this and I want to, in my career, I want to help people. That still hasn't changed. I still want to help people. And I feel like in any job you do, you're helping people in a sense, as long as you do it with like in HR, I obviously interact with employees a lot through email and stuff. And I think just being helpful to them and getting that positive feedback back, like, oh, that was
Yeah.
really helpful. Thank you so much for taking the time. Like that's validating to me. And I think I always kind of want to have that in a career. But now it's more about family and what I want in my future, family goals.
Mm, okay.
And like I never want to make my career my life. And I think that in certain careers I was exploring before, I could see that very much being the case, especially based on
Yeah.
my personality. I take things home, like if there's a bad incident, like I'm that person that will cry for a sad situation, and I
Mm,
just feel like knowing that and just accepting that that's the personality I have, and that I'm sure you could kind of build up those skills, right? Like more of that
yeah.
resiliency and whatnot.
Absolutely.
But now it's more about like I want to make sure I have work life balance. I never used to say that in the past in college and stuff. That wasn't like I need work life balance, but now I want that. Now I see the value in being there present with your family and your spouse. So I want to make sure that the career I have allows me to have that. So that's
That's
what
a
I
good
would say.
point. That's a
Yeah.
good point. Wait,
Yeah.
wait. No, let me ask you more on the personal side before we
Yeah.
wrap. So, like, do you guys have a date set of when y'all are gonna do this, or still time to decide?
We still haven't set a date, but we have an idea, like definitely giving myself a year to plan this. So maybe like April 2024 is what we're thinking.
Okay, so you have
Yeah.
some time. Okay,
Yeah.
and again, not there's no pressure here. We're just asking. Um, do you have any idea how long you guys would wait before you try to have children?
Yeah, so it's funny. I tell Tim now, I'm like, before I'm 30 and I'm 27 already.
So
So
you're gonna wait 1 year, so you'll be 28 next time. So
isn't that
then,
crazy? Yeah, so I'm being more realistic about it. Probably 30 is my max. I don't know why. I just
okay,
want to be like my mom was a young mom, and
okay.
I kind of want to be a young mom, I guess, you know.
I
But
mean, yeah, you're like, well, I would say if you're at 30, you're at a midpoint, not between
yeah,
like old and young, but you're seasoned enough that I think you've lived a certain amount of life, but
yes.
then you're also not so old where you might feel like you're disconnected, like you can't connect with your younger children and the things that they may be into.
Absolutely. And going off that point too, because I used to say this, I want this at this stage, but now that I'm living this, right?
Hmm.
Tim and I talk about wanting to travel. That's big for us. And we've gone to a few places together recently. We went to Japan with some friends and we were in New York recently, and that was so much fun. And that used to not really be a goal of mine was to travel, but in being with
Yeah,
Tim, like he's wanted to travel a lot. And now I'm excited at the potential of traveling. So we've discussed that we want to give ourselves time with each other, first of all, to learn each other living together, because that's going to be a
sure.
big learning curve. And two, to travel the world together before kids come into the mix. So I'm not really going to, I guess, give it an age. Um,
Okay.
I know ideally I would like to be before I'm 30, but we have
Okay.
goals. Yeah.
No, no, and it's good. And the reason why, and I appreciate you giving that honest answer too. The reason why I asked, and I think about that stuff more now is, and I'll take a step back. For me as a man, one thing I've learned in recent years is that men, we don't typically think about these things because we don't have the biological pressure to have to worry about it. Really,
Right.
women do,
Right.
and I respect it.
Yeah.
But the reason why I talk about it a little bit more now and I ask about it a little bit more now because exactly what you were just saying. Because there could be certain things that we want to accomplish in our life or certain things we want to do at certain points in our life. But at the same time, this is just my kind of general idea of when I think about problem solving with people. You have to create a priority list. What's at my top? And then things have to kind of naturally fit into a slot because everything cannot be done at the same time,
Correct.
right?
Mhm.
Whether it is I want this career to happen, I want this family to happen, I want to get married at this time, I want to have these kids at this time. So at some point we have to sit down, we have to actually prioritize what is actually the most important.
Right.
So I asked you that question because that's the way that I look at it now. So for example, if I was in you guys' shoes, I would be thinking, okay, so it's February 2023. We said April 2024 we want to get married. So that's 1 year. My wife's going to be 28. Keeping in mind, she said she wants to do this before 30. Then she's still working on her career. I'm working on mine. Then we want to travel. So let's say we gave ourselves a year to travel. Now she's 29. If we don't make it happen in 2025, going into 2026, she might feel some kind of way about that. So we need to have some sort of strategy. I'm huge into strategy.
Right.
We need to have some sort of strategy of how are we going to accommodate for these things
Hmm.
so that she feels comfortable and I feel comfortable. So
Yeah.
that would be my challenge to you in
Yeah.
thinking about the future because you have a certain amount of time essentially that you want these things to happen. So my thought in you sharing that is then be intentional, talk with him to figure out when more likely, no, there's no perfect timeline,
Right.
when more than likely would you like these things to happen
Hmm.
to increase the likelihood that they do, and so that you two can have that common understanding, so there doesn't become this pressure which often is the woman to the man, because again, man, we don't have this pressure, we can only procreate at certain times,
Right. Right.
to hurry up and let's do this. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I appreciate that advice and I'm going to take it with me. Absolutely. Like right now that we're planning for the future, planning a
Mhm.
wedding, but also planning like our living situation where we're going to be
Right.
has already kind of put in my mind like, oh, there's a lot of planning that goes into everything. Like like you said,
Yes.
everything you want to accomplish and everything you got to you're right, have a strategy, have an objective in mind and come together to discuss it and see when you're going to make these things happen. Like I couldn't agree more, and I'm definitely gonna allow that to follow me as we past this planning for wedding, past wedding, once we're living together, like okay, we got to sit down, this is what I want when I want it, and
Good, good.
being
Well,
okay with if it doesn't happen at the time I want, in a sense.
absolutely. And again, these plans, all these things we're talking about, these plans are all tentative, right? So
Yes.
they're not, I don't believe in like having concrete plans all the time because the reality
Right.
is life is going to throw things at you all the time.
Mhm.
So you may not be able to have things happen exactly as you had planned for them.
Yeah.
But What I'm speaking about is having no plan.
Yeah.
And just like then we kind of get in this position where we're like, okay, I need these things to happen, and we didn't really discuss it, so we don't really have a common understanding. So now this is inherent pressure that we got to hurry up and make things happen.
Right.
I don't want that for us. And
Yeah.
since you guys have time, which is good because it means there's a little less pressure,
Yeah.
if you guys are intentional, you can take some time and really talk that through and start to come up with some concrete ideas of when would we like these things to happen, because obviously, especially when you're talking about family building, that requires time. Kids do not microwave and come out in a day. So you need some
Sadly.
time to actually have them.
Yeah.
And so there has to be some kind of planning in the background to accommodate for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for that. And thankfully, I think between Tim and I, he's more of a planner, actually, surprisingly. And
Oh, okay.
he's the one that's like, I don't know much like financially and whatnot. He's more of my like, he's taught me about stocks and about this, about that. Like he's very financially sound and he's sound in a lot of real world things that I think I'm gonna learn as we're married, because like
Yeah.
sure I've learned from my parents, but I know there's things I'm gonna learn from him, but I am appreciative of the fact that he is a planner. Because sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, things should happen organically, but like, things such as this
Hmm.
should kind of have like some kind of, there should be some kind of plan behind it. So
Yeah.
thank
Especially when you're thinking about it impacts two people, right?
yes,
That's really why I think about it. Because when it's just about you, that
right,
doesn't mean you still shouldn't have a plan, but the plan maybe doesn't have to be as concrete. It could be a little more fluid because you're
hmm
like, I can kind of get into it whenever I get into it. But as
right,
soon as you start accounting for this other person who doesn't think the way that you do, that's when I have to start considering, okay, I want certain things to occur roughly around this time. So we need to actually sit down and start discussing because it's going to take two of us to make these things happen.
absolutely,
When would we like to start trying?
right,
And then you kind of have to reverse engineer the time of
mhm,
when we're going to start building up to these things. So then that means we need to be married around this time, which means we need to travel around this time, which means our marriage needs to happen and our wedding needs to happen around this time.
yeah,
We have to start getting basic ideas of these things. So
mhm,
I'm not trying to intimidate anybody, but I just simply put those things out there because when it comes to two different people and again, blending lives together, this
right.
is to me, this is a healthy way to approach trying to navigate that stuff, if
Oh
that makes
yeah.
sense.
And it would eliminate, I can already see it eliminating a lot of the stress and the pressure that would probably come
Yeah.
around just planning things like on the dime. But these are things that you kind of have to think about way before.
Yes. It inherently will bring the stress down, which I think
Yes.
makes people feel a lot more comfortable
Yeah.
and hopefully a little more excited for
Oh
the
yeah.
things that are to come. So
Yes, definitely.
I hope that that benefits you guys.